Let me put my glasses on. Right. Okay. Yep. Right. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Cheltenham Borough Council Licensing Subcommittee for Alcohol and Gambling, which is being held today, which is Wednesday, the 4th of September. My name is Councillor Dr. David Willingham, and I have been elected as chair of the committee. I will ask my two other councillors to introduce themselves. Councillor Barrell.
Hello, I'm Dilys Barrell. I'm councillor.
And
I'm Steve Steinhardt, councillor for the Readings.
and on the top table with me, I've got to my right our licensing officers, and to my left our legal officer and our democratic services officers. So the meeting is being streamed live to Cheltenham Borough Council's YouTube channel, and the recording of the meeting will be held for 4 years. If there are any breaks in the transmission of the YouTube stream, the meeting will be adjourned for a short period until any technical issues are resolved. To the public present, if you are here to make a representation to the meeting, you are consenting to the use of the sound and video recordings for broadcast and for training purposes. Please also be aware that CCTV and audio recording is now in operation in the public gallery. Recordings will be held by the council for 5 months. A fire alarm test is not expected, so if the fire alarm does sound, you should immediately make your way to the nearest exit. Those are indicated with green signs through the doorway you came in, and there's another one to my right. If there's an emergency and we do have to evacuate the building, then you will be taken to the relevant exit by a member of staff. If you have a mobile phone that makes a noise, could I please ask you to put it on silent so it doesn't disturb the meeting? And for those using the microphones, when you're asked to speak, if you press the button on the microphone in front of you, when you have the red light, you can speak. And when you finish speaking, if you can press the button again to turn off the microphone. So with that, I will move to agenda item 2, which is apologies. There are none. We have a full complement of 3 councillors and declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? So I'm not seeing anything from my 2 colleagues. I will just say that I'm a county councillor on Gloucestershire County Council, which has remit for trading standards. That's not a pecuniary interest, it's just for the record. And because I've been involved in licensing with Cheltenham Borough Council for, I think it's 7 years now, I'm acquainted with our police officer. And again, that's just for the record, it's not a pecuniary interest. With that, I will move on to the substantive item, which is the determination of an application for review of a premises licence. So, because this is a regulatory item, members must be present and have heard the proceedings in their entirety in order to vote on this item. We will ensure that the licensee and their representative are present in the meeting. I will ask the licensing officer to introduce the report. Members will get the opportunity to ask the licensing officer any questions, as will the police and the licensee or their representative. We will ask the police to present their case and request that's done in no more than 10 minutes, although if more time is needed, that can be made possible. We'll then allow councillors to ask the police any questions. This isn't a court hearing, so there is no cross-examination, but if there are any matters that need to be clarified, the licensee will then be given an opportunity to present their case, and again, councillors will be able to ask questions. We will debate the matter, which may just be some comments. We will ensure that the licensee is given a final right of reply. And it's then likely we will adjourn to take legal advice and reach our decision. And upon our return, we will read the decision so that and give that back to to you, and that will then come in writing in due course. So with that, if I can invite our licensing team, no, it's not team lead, you're the head of public protection, aren't you? To introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Chair and members of the committee, as explained, this is an application for review of a premises licence in relation to bargain booths on Hewlett Road in Cheltenham. Under the legislation, an application for review can be made at any time after the grant of a premises licence by a responsible authority or any other person if there are concerns about the operation of the premises in relation to the 4 licensing objectives. In this case, an application for review of the premises licence was made on behalf of Gloucester Constabulary on the grounds that the premises or the DPS and their staff has been guilty of a persistent sale of alcohol to minors, namely that within a 3-month period between April and June 2024, alcohol was sold to minors. The same DPS also failed a test purchase operation in November 2022, serving alcohol to a 16-year-old. Important to note, as outlined in the police submissions, that a staged approach has been taken up to this date, and there's been engagement with the licensee and DPS in order to try to get improvement in the situation, but that hasn't materialised, hence why an application for review was ultimately the outcome of this process. Attached Appendix 1 is further supporting information and documents submitted by the police as part of their application for review of a premises licence. Following the application for a review of the premises licence, a 28-day consultation period commences, giving opportunity for other responsible authorities or other persons to submit comments in relation to the review application. In relation to this, an application, comments were received or representations were made by Trading Standards of the County Council relating to the sale of e-cigarettes to minors, and there's an explanation of that representation under 3.2 of the report. Members must be mindful of its own licensing policy statement when determining this application. At paragraph or section 4 of the report, the relevant extracts of our licensing policy document. It's just worth pointing out and reminding the committee that you are obligated to promote the licensing objectives when looking at this application and making a decision. Each application is determined on its own merits, and each of the 4 licensing objectives are of equal importance. So clearly the objectives relating to protection of children from harm and prevention of crime and disorder would be the most relevant objections, but it doesn't exclude the other 2, and they should be treated with equal importance. In addition to the licensing policy statement, you must also have regard to the statutory guidance issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act when discharging your functions, and under Section 5 of the Officer's Report, there are again relevant extracts for members to refer to for the national statutory guidance. In particular, I draw members' attention to 5.8, where there's particular reference to offences relating to the sale of supply of alcohol to children that members want to be mindful of. Also in relation to the Section 182 statutory guidance, just want to point out, I previously mentioned to the committee about the stage approach that's been attempted or in relation to this case. The statutory guidance says, and this is under 5.16 of your report, that where responsible authorities, such as the police or environmental health officers, have already issued warnings requiring improvement that have failed as part of their staged approach to address the concerns, licensing authorities should not merely repeat that approach and should take this into account when considering what further action is appropriate. So, as explained earlier in the report, the police have already attempted a staged approach to avoid this review application. So that's a relevant consideration for the members when you decide what you want to do. As 5.17, the powers available to the committee are outlined and the decisions that you can take. Just want to point out at 5.18 of the report as well. This is taken from the statutory guidance. It says, in deciding which of these powers to invoke, it is expected that licensing authorities should, as far as possible, seek to establish the cause or causes of the concerns that the representations identify. The remedial action taken should generally be directed at these causes and should always not be more than an appropriate and proportionate response to address the concerns that instigated the review. So members need to be mindful that your decision needs to be proportionate and take into account the individual circumstances of this case. Just moving to section 6 and officer comments. Just to reiterate again that you must promote the licensing objectives when discharging this application and making your decisions. You must have regard to your policy and the section 102 guidance. And having done so, you can, the powers available to this committee, you can modify the conditions of the premises license. You can exclude one or more licensable activities from the scope of the license. You can remove the designated premises supervisor. You can decide to suspend the license, or you can decide to revoke the premises license. In terms of the specific officer comments, they're all outlined at 5.4, and I don't plan to go through them, but if members got any questions, I think they're fairly self-explanatory and clear. You have the opportunity to speak to officers. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from members for the licensing officer? Not seeing any. So I'll just put these on the record. So we've obviously had the representation from Trading Standards in respect of tobacco products, age-restricted sales, failing a test purchase for that. We obviously don't regulate tobacco. I guess we can, is it correct, we can only really give that weight in evidencing that there is an issue with non-compliance with age-related sales?
Yeah, so in relation to e-cigarettes and vapes, we as a district authority are not the enforcing authority. That's such as trading standards. So trading standards are not represented here, so you can't question that. So the committee will have to take the information from trading standards at face value.
And in terms of suspension, can I confirm that suspension, we're here not to apply punishment, so a suspension would need to be for a specific purpose. So, for example, to bring the CCTV up to standard, we can't just say we are suspending the licence for a particular period because our role is not like a court.
Yeah, so I mean, your decision making is not punitive. So we're not making decisions to punish. As you say, we're not a court of law. We make decisions to promote the licensing objectives. So the committee can, if it is so minded to do, suspend for a period of time if it leads to corrective action, whatever the committee may want to specify. But yeah, suspension shouldn't serve as a punitive measure.
And the final question, are we aware of any contact from the licensee to the licensing authority about antisocial behaviour, requesting an assistance or anything like that in dealing with what might be described as youth antisocial behaviour?
Not to my knowledge, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Thank you. I'll just go around for questions. Are there any questions for the licensing officer from the police?
No questions, thank you.
And are there any questions for the licensing officer from the licensee's representative?
Thank you very much, Chair. I have not a question, but we understand that we were appointed at a very last minute on this case, and our preparation was very urgent regarding the case, and we prepared some conditions, proposed conditions, which we would like you to have a look, but that will only be allowed if the applicant approves. We made enough copies to make sure we don't have to run around. And if you would like, and if the police agrees, we could present that I made enough copies for everybody to go around, if that is agreeable by the applicant.
Yeah, so as I was just saying to the chair, so clearly within the committee's powers, there's the power to modify conditions. But I think at this stage, it might be a little bit premature to jump straight into that. So I think what we need to do is go through the process, give everybody an opportunity to address the committee and debate. And if the committee then at the end of that process then decides that the appropriate way to dispense with this is by way of conditions, we can then have that conversation and everybody can then have a look at the conditions. But I think at this stage is a bit premature for us to jump straight into agreeing conditions because we've not given everybody the opportunity to address the committee.
Sorry, Chair. Our intention wasn't to make your decision straight away on it. Our intention was that documentation presented to the committee at any time prior to the hearing, it takes about 24 hours, which we didn't have in this instance. So all we're doing is we're just presenting our conditions. But we'll wait. We have no problems. We'll wait.
What I'll suggest is if we can, if I can ask one of my Democratic Services team to pick the documents up and just get them round so everyone can have a look at them, and then we're going to hear from the police first. That will give people a chance to have a look at it, and then we can see where we go from there. And obviously, when you get to present your part of the case, they will have had a chance to have a look at them.
Just to inform you that we've already had a discussion prior to the hearing with the police, and he's happy to have the copy. So, with your permission, we will be able to go further.
Yeah. Have you? Can I just check? Have you had a chance to see these?
Yeah, so we literally, when I came in just after 4 p.m, I've just obviously had the solicitors asked to have a chat with me, show me the conditions. So it's only obviously a quick glancing look. They're pretty much, from what I've seen, the same as what I asked, or in the variation, which we'll go through, I'm sure. But there are a few points that we've discussed that aren't covered on there. So we probably would cover that at the end, if that's correct.
Do you want an adjournment to just go through it, or are you happy with presenting what your case now?
I think I'd still need to present the case because obviously I was requesting a suspension of the licence whilst a new DPS is put in place, if that's the agreement from the subcommittee, and that obviously hasn't been decided at this time. So those conditions would be very similar to what I've already requested that haven't taken place. So I feel that obviously we need to just clarify whether suspension is taken, the DPS is removed and the licence suspended whilst a new DPS is presented, if that's what obviously the actions that are taken.
Yeah. So I think we've got this so members can have a read of this. If I get you to present your case now, and then we'll take questions from the committee, and then if people still need time to read it, we can have a short adjournment. So I'll hand over to you.
Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. So the police have called for a review of the premises licence in regards to Bargain Booze, Hewlett Road in Cheltenham, on the grounds of the licensing objective, the protection of children from harm, and the offence of Section 147A of the Licensing Act 2003, which is persistently selling alcohol to children. So within a 3-month period between the 4th of April this year and the 25th of June, the premises have sold alcohol to a minor. One of those sales was taking place by the DPS herself, who conducted that sale, and then a separate member of staff failed a test purchase operation selling alcohol to one of the police cadets. The same DPS has also failed a previous test purchase operation in November 2022, where again, a police cadet was served alcohol when a police operation took place. A stage approach has been adopted and efforts have been made to try to deal with the concerns at a local level. A staged approach, including myself visiting the store in person on 2 occasions, providing 2 written warning letters describing the actions and offences that were seen and advice on how to rectify them, numerous phone calls and emails with the DPS herself. The DPS is also the premises licence holder and has been since 2021 to my knowledge. and unfortunately, in my opinion, has failed to demonstrate that she can run a safe and responsible premises, failed to address the issues that I've identified, thus negatively impacting on the licensing objectives. Further grounds supporting this review are as follows. So in chronological order, on the 6th of May 2020, we had intelligence that staff at the Bargain Booze in Hewlett Road, Cheltenham, were serving underage people and had served a 16-year-old boy alcohol and tobacco without asking for any ID, and this intelligence stipulated that he was clearly underage. On the 15th of January 2022, I completed a licence check at Bargain Booze to be able to introduce myself, complete a licence check. A summary was added onto our police database, which is called Innkeeper. And at this visit, I discussed in detail best practice and due diligence. Several breaches were seen whilst in attendance, such as the CCTV system not working, which was one of their actual licence conditions. So I discussed at this time the CCTV needed to be fixed. And again, as I said, best practice including staff training logs, incident logs and refusal logs. My direct details were left advising them to contact me if they required any support. And at this time, I was in attendance for around 40 minutes, and that's shown in Appendix 1. November 2022, we ran an operation called Operation Scorpion, which was a test purchase operation. Unfortunately, in this operation, the DPS, Mrs. Kerr, conducted the sale to a 16-year-old cadet. My colleague, PC Matt Hammond, who conducted the operation, provided a statement in which he detailed the sale of alcohol to the minor, confirmed the tester did not dress or change their appearance to attempt to look older, and in his opinion, clearly looked under the age of 18. PC Hammond supplied a statement, and in this, he provided advice around verification and using the Challenge 25, which is seen in Appendix 2. In December 2022, following the above test purchase fail, I sent a letter to the DPS clearly outlining the seriousness of the failed test purchase operation, especially with her being the DPS of the premises. The letter outlined the offences under the Licensing Act 2003, which in that case would have been 146, but also included information around 147A, which is persistently selling alcohol to children, and it advised her of the staged approach that the police use. The letter outlined and explained the responsibilities around preventing underage sales, again talking around training the staff members, checking for ID and using Challenge 25, and that can be seen in Appendix 3. Mr. Windercar, on the 4th of April 2024, allegedly served an underage youth alcohol. And then to keep this in chronological order, on the 9th of April 2024, I received an email from Trading Standards, which was a complaint they had received stating on Thursday, the 4th of April 2024, Bargain Booze in Hewlett Road in Cheltenham, a lady working at this branch served a 17-year-old boy a bottle of £15 Glen's vodka, and this vodka made its way to her 15-year-old son. He consequently ended up in A&E as he was found unresponsive and covered in his own vomit. Due to the seriousness of this complaint or allegation, I contacted the complainant to check the welfare of her son and obviously obtain further details and asked if they'd make a statement. Unfortunately, they wouldn't make a statement. However, they did provide me the details of the youth that purchased the alcohol, the description of the clothing he was wearing, and a rough estimate of the time that he attended the premises. So on the 12th of April, I contacted the DPS via a phone call, discussed the complaint I'd received, asked her to secure the CCTV for me, and then to contact me once ready so that I could attend, view it, and obviously discuss the incident with her. That's Appendix 5. 11 days later, 23rd of April, I called the DPS again as no contact had been received, and the DPS stated on the call that she did not have the CCTV footage as the CCTV system did not record. I already knew that in 2022 I'd advised the DPS the CCTV needed to work as it was a licence condition, and due to the seriousness of this incident with the youth ending up in hospital, I advised I would attend the store the following day to complete a licence check, and my intention at this time was to serve as Section 19 notice under the Criminal and Police Act 2001, And once I'd obviously confirmed the CCTV was not working and alcohol had been served within the previous 24 hours, that's required to meet the Section 19 notice. I attended the store on the 24th, the following day, and I was in situ for approximately 1 hour. The DPS and her daughter were present, and we were actually able to get the CCTV working. So this negated the Section 19 notice, and I believe the potential breach of that condition. The CCTV timings were right, but I believe we did see the youth who was alone, wearing the clothes as described at that time, purchasing a bottle of spirits because the CCTV showed the DPS herself fetching the bottle from behind the shelves, which is where she confirmed the spirits are located. CCTV is unclear if ID was requested at this time, but I informed the DPS at this time on the balance of probability she served this minor with the alcohol and not asked for ID, otherwise the sale had been refused. I asked for a receipt but was informed this was not possible, and it was a confusion response as to why. I also discussed again the seriousness of this incident and the importance of Challenge 25, requesting for ID and how to check it correctly, looking for the holographic markings, raised print, checking the date of birth for an example. And I also emphasised my concerns around the lack of understanding of the licensing conditions and objectives. And based on the above, I discussed with them putting in a licence variation and explained it wasn't compulsory, but that I'd like them to consider it as it bring their licence up to date, and we can obviously add conditions around staff training to try and negate any further underage sales taking place. This would also allay some of the concerns I had around the premises selling alcohol to minors, and they both agreed to complete this variation and agreed it would benefit them as a business. That's Appendix 7. So on the 26th of April, I sent an email to the DPS, copied in Cheltenham Borough Council, summarising my visit and the details for the variation. And to help the DPS, I sent a link for the variation to Cheltenham Borough Council's website, provided all the wording for the conditions I'd like to be added, and suggested they read that and then make contact with me. I asked for this to be completed by the 17th of May 2024 and offered any further assistance in my contact details should they need them. And that's under Appendix 8. This variation actually took 10 weeks to submit, with me having to do numerous chasing emails. They're all under the appendixes. I'm sure you've probably seen them already, so I won't go through them all. I then obviously received a picture on the 21st of June to show that the variation had been submitted. However, it was incomplete, and TBC had requested further information from the DPS. Unfortunately, did not get a response, so it was later marked as being invalid, so no conditions were added. In June, 25th of June, I completed another test purchase operation. So this is approximately 8 weeks since the previous fail. And this was done at 7:25 in the evening using two 16-year-old police cadets. When I saw the police cadets, I immediately thought every store would pass because they looked extremely young in age, both of them. I tested 8 stores within Cheltenham and Tewkesbury, and unfortunately the only store that failed was Bargain Booze from Hewlett Road in Cheltenham. The male staff member that completed the sale was Mr. Singh, which I understand is the husband of Mrs. Kerr, and he sold a four-pack of Wicked Blue with an ABE of around 4% without asking for any identification. Again, I won't go into too much detail, but he signed a statement at that sale to agree that he understood it was an underage sale that he had completed. It was a test purchase operation that he had failed, and he signed to agree that that sale had taken place. Following that, I sent a letter to the premises advising them that I would be requesting a review of their licence, and I also then obviously copied it into Cheltenham Borough Council to inform them I'd be calling for a review, and that was on the 3rd of July. I'm not sure at this time, do I provide the conclusion of what I was requesting from the review, or is that done later on?
Yeah, feel free to provide that now, and then we'll take any questions from councillors if that's you've got to the point where you've presented it all.
Okay, brilliant. So the conclusion for this review I've requested is that the DPS, who is also the personal licence holder, has dismissed the importance of the licence and legal compliance. Even after 3 failed underage sales, 2 conducted by the DPS herself, 2 written warnings, 2 personal visits by myself, numerous phone calls and emails, the DPS continues to operate otherwise than in accordance with their authorisation in exposing young people to harm by allowing underage sales. So the police respectively recommend to the subcommittee a suspension of the licence, imposed conditions and removal of the DPS. This would allow for the amendment of requested conditions to be implemented and a change of the DPS before reopening. Should the DPS premise licence holder fail to learn from this, the police would be seeking a revocation in the future. And then I've provided, obviously, the subcommittee some links to some BIIAB approved online training, which is one of the conditions I've asked for.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions to the police? Councillor Barrell.
Thank you. Yes, I'm impressed by the staged approach you've done for this, and it's obviously gone on for quite some time. I'm wondering if you've come to any conclusion as to the cause of, the fact that this problem has continued. Has intimidation and that sort of thing got any part to play in it all?
So on the second test purchase operation that I conducted, which was failed by, I believe, Mrs. Kerr's husband, he did explain, his English is not his first language, so he was obviously having to be translated by the daughter at the time. But he did explain that he feels underage children are constantly going into the premises, and when they're asked for ID or refuse to sale, they kick the doors and they're abusive and aggressive. Obviously, I did respond to that to say that no incidents have been reported to the police, and we understand now the local authority also have had no incidents of ASB being reported to them. And at the time of the test purchase operation, the 2 young people, testers, were the only people in the store. So really, as I explained, there's no excuse for him not to have asked for ID at that point, because you've got 2 very young-looking children trying to obtain alcohol, and he still didn't ask for any identification and just did the sale, completed the sale.
Councillor Steinhardt.
Yeah, thank you for your very comprehensive report. It certainly outlined the seriousness of the serious nature of this whole incident numbers. And there was obviously a lack of engagement over quite a long period of time. When you visited the stores, what sort of response were you getting from the DPS?
So to be totally honest, the DPS was always apologetic. I think she wants to do the right thing, but my true belief is that she doesn't have an understanding of the responsibilities of running a licensed premises. I discussed staff training with her. It never got implemented. At every stage, there's been a reason why something hasn't taken place. And I think it's just a lack of understanding and knowledge around her responsibilities, but with good intention.
Okay, thank you. So I've got a couple of questions for you as well. So how long a suspension would you be seeking, and what's the objective? I think you've covered the objective, which is to actually just to try and get a reset. But what sort of period of time are you looking for?
So I've talked to their solicitor just prior to this hearing, and I'm sure you'll be made aware shortly that one of the proposals from the solicitor was that the DPS would be changed. So the reason I was calling for a suspension was for that to take place. So for the DPS to be removed, a new DPS to be appointed, staff training to be completed with the online module, if that's agreed, which will take some time to obtain the certificates. And in this case, the new DPS hasn't got a personal licence at this time, so they would need to complete a personal licence course to become the new DPS. All of that would take, obviously, some time. So my proposal would be at least a 2-month suspension for all that to be put in place.
2 months.
Yes.
Oh, and then I think you covered this, but I just wanted to confirm that you've not had any reports of antisocial behaviour to the police in related to refused sales.
Sorry, what was it in relation to?
So, so when you were saying that Mr. Singh in the translated comment said that youths would kick the shop door and cause antisocial behaviour, have the police had any reports of that? And I think you said that they hadn't.
Yeah, no reports whatsoever.
In your proposed conditions of the ones that were requested, not for this one, but for the minor variation, there was a requirement to have an incident log, and it said to record any reportable incidents. Can I sort of clarify, just so that we've got no doubt in anyone's mind what that means, what the police's description of things that you want reported? I'm assuming it's things like antisocial behaviour, shoplifting, threats, etc. But it would be useful to just try and clarify that.
Yeah, so exactly what you've just alluded to. Incidents, for example, where they're saying that the youths once refused are kicking their doors, throwing things in the store, any verbal abuse, any physical threats of violence, those type of things to be recorded in the incident log. We would then obviously at this stage have that evidence as well. Obviously they could have said, look, here's all the things we're experiencing, but obviously that wasn't disclosed.
And the final one, just to come back on, so we've obviously got that statement from Mr. Singh about what happens. So from my knowledge of the various ways of dealing with antisocial behaviour or the contacts, we've obviously got the Gloucestershire Constabulary Neighbourhood Policing Team. We've got yourself on the Gloucestershire Constabulary Licensing Team. We've got the CBC Licensing Authority, and we've got Solace. And it's probably worth putting this on the record, not just for this licensee, but for everyone. If premises are getting targeted by youth antisocial behaviour for refusals, what's the best escalation route for that with the police, so that ultimately our team, our licensing can share that, and everyone then knows what they should do? Because I think that seems potentially part of the issue, and I want to make sure that if we do follow your recommendation, that we know how we're going to tackle that part of it, which I think is somewhat out of the hands of the licensee.
Yeah, certainly. So without a doubt, any reports of any type of antisocial behaviour, as we've just defined, should be reported either via 101, which is the non-emergency number. They can go on to the police website, Gloucestershire Constabulary's website, and do an online report. Obviously, if it's an emergency, if they are threatening violence and refusing to leave, they've got 999 at that point. And what would happen, they can also email, of course, as well, straight direct from their own computers or phones. Once that report's received, it can then be signposted to the correct departments to provide the assistance required. And one example of that, at the moment, we've got an Operation Ash, which is a dedicated team in regards to antisocial behaviour, and they would be able to implement patrols, around the hotspot times when they're experiencing the issues. If that's school times when they're finishing school, they'd be able to go there and then obviously target the areas and do patrols. So it would get signposted to the correct department, but the best way is to 101 via an email, or 999 if it's an emergency. And we would then signpost it to Solace or whoever's required.
And although I haven't asked the licensee about this, if there was any hate crime type motivation to that, so if this wasn't just antisocial behaviour, but it also had a racial motive, can I confirm the police would take that more seriously as well? Because I think I can understand from some of the off licenses in the area I represent that some people have got that type of attitude, and I just wanted to confirm that that would add an extra level to the police taking action further if you can identify the individuals involved.
Yeah, certainly. So obviously any report of crime would be taken seriously and all treated with the same. However, it would be an aggravating factor. So yes, it could lead to a different outcome.
Okay, thank you. Are there any more questions from my council colleagues? Okay. With that, if I now hand over to the licensee's representative, so this is your opportunity to obviously respond, make your proposals, and after we've heard that, we may well have some questions for you as well.
Thank you very much, Chair. All I can say initially is that although we were just given this case at the last minute, first of all, I would applaud the police's job in this instance is quite good, very good, I should say, in this case. And I would also like to, reading through and understanding what the police is asking, the all instances, my client has always been very cooperative with the police, trying to see how best they can resolve the matter in the area which we've just discussed. Our suggestion to the clients are plenty. For first suggestion to you is I could discuss further if the conditions that we've just sent around be passed on or discussed so that we can discuss that during my presentation. That will be one thing. The other thing is they've had these premises for quite a long time now. Since 2019 or 2014, they've had these premises there. During 2014 to 2019, they had the premises as a freeholder. In came in the COVID in 2020. They lost quite a lot of business and it was difficult for them to survive. They managed to sell the business to somebody. The freeholding was sold and they were lucky enough that the freeholder decided that they should carry on with working in the business. All those effects have come on them at the moment. We're not saying with those effects that they should be selling underage. We're not saying that. All we are saying is they've gone through that matter. They're now keeping their heads up and making sure that they carry on. If today your committee decided to revoke the license, they would be on streets because the freeholder will immediately ask them to vacate because they will not be able to pay their rents or lights or that. But that's one of the things that could affect, and that is their own doing, that they should make sure that they don't do it again. So they are concerned. They are very concerned. And their concerns have brought back to us to say, look, we are concerned. What can we do now here? So our suggestion to the committee today is, I've sat down for an hour or so, and I've discussed with the police, and we all agree, if you were to agree and the committee were to agree, that we would bring in these conditions that we are now passing around for you to discuss, which will strengthen the license. It will bring the license into more conditional effect. It will promote the 4 licensing objectives. If you look at the guidance 9.42, which says licensing authorities are best placed to determine what actions are appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives in their area. All licensing determinations should be considered on a case-by-case basis. So we put down this condition on case-by-case, on their case basis. They should take into account any representations or objections that have been received from responsible authorities or other persons, and representations made by the applicant or premises users, as the case may be. So we've discussed this with the police prior to coming to you here, and we all of us think, including the police, that these conditions would tighten things up. The police would like to add one more condition on it, which we are happy to accept that the training should carry out. We're very happy to add that. We're also looking into, in deciding and letting you know physically what we are now going to be promoting, which was not there before in the premises. There will be a training manual. I can pass around the training manual. I've shown it to the police and they're very happy with that. There will be a new incident book, completely different. There will be a refusal book, completely different. They have a refusal book at the moment, but there will be a refusal book which explains and what they have to carry on. We are also providing them with new Challenge 25 posters. So everybody who picks up the alcohol, there will be a poster there to tell them that, look, you need to have an ID before you can bring your product to the till. Not one, but 3 posters wherever the alcohol is put up. The shop is quite big. There will be a CCTV poster put up to make sure to tell people that CCTV is working 24 hours. There will be a notice to say, please leave quietly, consider our neighbors. Apart from that, there will be a training menu which will consider how the training will be carried out under the Licensing Act 2003. And they will carry out the training to anybody employed at the premises. They will have to undergo this training prior to that employment. And if the employment is carried out on a permanent basis, we are putting an extra condition, which we have not put it into there, which we have agreed with the police to say they will undergo a BII level 1. The BII level 1 is online, so they could do the course online, and the certificate is printed to show them. The premises license will also be attached in the document. And as you are aware in the country that we got a lot of illegal immigrants being employed, and premises tend to get those fines. All the documents of people employed at the premises will have a right to work checklist, and those documents will be attached in for all responsible authorities to have a look. There will be an authorization under Section 57 and authorization to the staff that are working at the premises from the DPS. The trainings will be every 3 months. Sometimes we ask the premises to do it every 6 months, but there will be a training carried out by the DPS even after they've done the level 1 BIAB. They will do a 3 months training, and those trainings will be logged. So responsible authorities will have to check those trainings that are logged, and they'll be logged into. An hour's training will be given by the DPS. It'll be logged into, and the responsible authorities will be able to have a look at that. They will also have a short examination prior to their employment. And there will be a guidance book of Challenge 25 given to the people who are employed so they can take it home and they can read through that. So we've now got the DPS changed. The incoming DPS at the moment hasn't got a personal license, but does understand the Licensing Act. So she's going to undergo the APLH level 2, which normally takes for us to work through with the personal license about a month. So we're suggesting a month's suspension is quite enough for us to change the DPS, log into the new DPS under the application, and we would then keep the premises into a good condition. So I have suggested, I'm happy to discuss if the committee has agreed to look at the conditions and everybody has agreed to discuss that. The conditions literally tightens the license up much more robustly, and they have to promote the 4 licensing very robustly. That's our suggestion. And the guidance clearly states, again in 9.43, the authority's determination should be evidence-based. So we have shown you the evidence, how we're going to promote and robustly the licenses, justified as being appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives and proportionate to what it is intended to achieve. And we feel it will achieve a result that we are all looking for. So, Chairman, that's what our presentation is. I'm happy to take any questions. My other suggestion, as you have said and asked the license officer, that what would we do in case of those conflicts that we have when people come in and knock? I'm suggesting to the incoming DPS to undergo a conflict management course. A conflict management course helps the DPS or any license holder of how to deal with the conflicts that occur on the premises. So a lot of suggestions is put up by the police, which we will ask the incoming DPS to follow in. But apart from that, we are also suggesting a conflict management course, which is online, which will help the premises in the ways that you're looking for. So, Chairman, that's our presentation today. I'm happy to take any questions, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Do I have any questions? So, Councillor Barrell.
Yes, Thank you very much. I mean, you're obviously making a real effort to try and sort out this problem. I'm just wondering, as you know, there's been all this period when the police and various people have been trying to help and not succeeding. You know, is there going to be some sort of support maybe for Mrs. Kaur and the new DPS in order to be able to do these things? You know, I get the feeling that perhaps they've been struggling to actually manage to do what's needed. And although you've got all this stuff, you know, it's got to be made to happen, as it were. I'm just wondering about any support or help along the way to overcome the problems that have been in the past.
Ma'am, I totally agree with you. If there was a child, we could hold his hand and take him forward. Now, we're looking into making sure that we're going to do that, what you do for a child. We've been appointed, and we're going to make sure it is our neck at the moment, to be honest, coming here in front of you. And then we do not want to come in front of you again at the time that you would say, well, you told us, and we are back to square one. That will be a shaming for us. So we're going to make sure that this happens. I've made an effort for 1 hour today before coming here and made sure that she understands the new incoming DPS, very good English. The mum doesn't got a very good English, but she's a DPS at the moment. So we have a confidence at the moment. And that confidence has brought me here. I applaud the police, to be honest, for not asking for revocation. In my opinion, I do 2 hearings every week. And in any other hearing, this would be a revocation. So I'm not going to back around the bush. But I'm going to tell you very honestly, I do not want to come back here again. And I've already spelled that to them, that this is the last chance they have. There is no other chance. And I thank the police for giving them that last chance. And our efforts, along with Simon's efforts, is it Simon, yeah? Jeremy's efforts, we will make sure we will not be here again.
Councillor Steinhardt?
Just a comment rather than a question, and that is, as you know, we're not here to be punitive. The seriousness of the previous events obviously have not bypassed us, but you certainly seem to be making an effort to abide by all the conditions which, or proposed conditions, which we hope you would carry through and make sure that the premises were then perfectly safe. So I think that having had a quick glance at all these and heard you, I feel that if all those were in place with a change of DPS, there is a chance that things might go forward positively. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Is there any other questions? I'm happy to take over.
I think from my point of view, it's just checking that your client and the licensee is really, really clear that they understand these conditions do have legal weight behind them. They are enforceable in terms of criminal sanctions for non-compliance, and also that they understand that we want to make sure that the antisocial behaviour, which seems to be the root of the problem, i.e. you have youth antisocial behaviour following refusals, we need to make sure they understand that they have to work with the police and potentially the council's antisocial behaviour team to report it, to get it tackled, because it is a criminal offence for someone under the age of 18 to buy or attempt to buy. So as well as the antisocial behaviour, if we can identify the people that are causing the problem, they can be given a warning as well. And I just want to make sure that your client does understand, A, the severity of this, and B, the need to follow the conditions that may or may not be imposed, and to work with the police and the licensing authority.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm going to stress this, and what I've also stressed to them is under Section 136, they could be imprisoned if they were to sell alcohol or do not obey any of these conditions. I've explained that. So I've made it very, very clear, and I've made it very, very absolutely clear that there are dangerous things if you do not employ. Now, that seriousness has made them aware that we didn't know. And I said under Section 136 guidance, you could face a fine, or you could be prosecuted, you could go face a criminal offense or anything. So they've understood that. Now, we're all going to keep our fingers crossed, myself and the police and everybody, and we're going to make sure this happens, and we'll try and make ourselves feel that we don't have to come back here.
Okay. So if I ask police, are you content with those conditions? And was there something else that needed to be added, from my understanding?
Yes, so the one thing I requested in my conclusion to the review application was that any staff member concerned in the sale of alcohol or age-related products would take an online training course for age-related product sales, which produces a certificate of completion at the end of the course once the test has been passed. And this course had to be endorsed by the BIIAB, British Institute of Innkeeping Awarding Body, and then obviously refreshed. I asked for every 12 months, but they're proposing every 3.
Thank you. And if I can ask the licensing officer, I think you've got some comments on the technicalities of the wording, which you might want to just make sure we capture.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So just reflecting on the Section 102 guidance, it says that conditions must be precise and enforceable, not ambiguous, must be unambiguous rather, and should not duplicate statutory requirements. So with that in mind, under prevention of public nuisance at the bottom, under point 2, the condition relating to the sale of alcohol to drunks, that's already a legal requirement, so we don't need to duplicate that as a condition on the license. In relation to condition 2, we're trying to avoid phraseology, so the suitable or by example, because it's open to interpretation. So I suggest under condition 2 with to do with CCTV, we might want to rephrase to say the equipment must have a digital data export method, either DVD. So it just makes it clear there's no interpretation about suitable. What is suitable? What's suitable for them might not be suitable for us. So just want to make the point, I think the wording on suitable may just need rewording. So it just says that it must have the functionality for digital export, just so there's no ambiguity about that. Under number 6, I don't want to put the onus on my licensing officers when the CCTV system stops working, because I don't know what the expectation would be. There's no point in them telling the licensing officer the CCTV is not working. So I would suggest that the committee consider maybe that should the CCTV become non-functional, the premises must immediately cease sale of alcohol until such time as the system becomes fully operational again. Then, yeah, because I wouldn't want to put my officers in a position where they have to make a judgment call on something. So on that, we've already tried under 11. We've already discussed the training log, because I think it's important that although the training must be undertaken, it must also be logged, just so, because otherwise there would be no evidence of that training. So I think a training log with the minimum name, date of the training and the content of the training should be recorded. And we've already discussed that, so that's already been covered. And then we've already done BII level 1. So I just suggest that those conditions potentially be changed just to make it, to remove any ambiguity over the meaning and interpretation of them. Just whilst I am speaking, Mr. Chair, when the committee considers the length of suspension, there are just a number of relevant things that I think the committee will benefit from being aware of. Under Section 37 of the Licensing Act, when an application is submitted for the change of DPS, the police are a consultee, and under that section, the Chief Officer of Police must be given at least 14 days notice beginning on the day in which the application is made. So technically, the police have 14 days to consider the application and to make any comments that it may wish or not to make. So that's a relevant consideration in terms of the length. And then just furthermore, under section 38, there is the ability for the applicant to tick a box on the form to say that they want this change to take immediate effect. So if we're in a situation where they have a personal license holder they want to nominate tomorrow, they can submit the application to us tomorrow, tick that box, and which effectively means that it's assumed that a DPS will be in place until we determine the application, so that there would be no time elapsed between us determining the application, that it will have immediate effect. So that again will have a bearing on your decision in terms of the length of the suspension if you were minded to suspend the licence as an outcome of this hearing.
I mean, looking at the proposal from the police in terms of the minor variation and the additional variation, the proposal from the licensee about that, I think there's not too much of a gap between what both parties are asking for. So I suspect the best thing for me to do at this point is to ensure that the licensee is given the final right of reply, and then we can adjourn to come back with our decision. So you have your final right of reply.
Thank you, Chair. I haven't got much to put in. I've had enough said, but we will make sure that we comply, and we will make sure if we will do everything that we can and work along with the responsible authorities. Thank you very much, Chair.
Is there anything else you need to say? Okay. So with that, the time's 5:30. So I suspect we should adjourn for 15 minutes. Hopefully that will be sufficient.
It might just be better to have the discussion open so that everybody knows what we're talking about. So we were just talking about the process for changing the licence to impose or to add these conditions. So the only process that exists would be by way of a minor variation, of course, as well. Or unless you're of the view that the committee can just substitute by way of decision the licence without the need for a minor variation and the fee that. So I'm open to your view on that.
My view is if the conditions are endorsed by the committee, that we don't need a minor variation. We only need a minor variation if the conditions were not endorsed by the committee and the police were to suggest to us to put a minor variation. At this instance, I think your legal would say also that if the committee endorses the license conditions, committee endorses, it would automatically have to be implemented.
Yeah, that's fine. I agree. The committee can impose a condition so that it has immediate effect. So then this is the issue of the change of DPS that might have a delaying effect.
So with that, I think members, legal and democratic services, we probably need to adjourn to a different room. So hopefully just after Right. Okay. Are we live again? Okay. Thank you to those watching for your patience. So I will now read the unanimous decision of the committee. So the subcommittee had due regard to the provisions of the Licensing Act 2003, which confer the powers of the licensing authority to deal with the review application. The obligation to promote the 4 licensing objectives and the relevant sections of the Council's Statement of Licensing Policy and the statutory guidance. The subcommittee will add the suggested conditions handed up by the applicant with amended words as stated by the head of public protection, which includes amending condition 6 under crime and disorder to read, no alcohol shall be sold if the CCTV is inoperative for any reason. This is added for reasons of previous non-compliance with having working CCTV and is in the council's model pool of conditions in the licensing policy. To add the condition in the police minor variation request about training, and to say that training will need to be every 6 months, and to add the condition requested by the police about the BIIAB training that was requested, and to delegate to the head of public protection in consultation with the chair to merge the conditions requested by the police for the model variation and the conditions submitted by the licensee so that everything is covered. We resolved to remove the DPS and to suspend the licence for not less than 4 weeks, subject to the new DPS being appointed with all the relevant qualifications being considered, otherwise to suspend until this is done up to 3 months. And I think to the licensee, we need to say that the police have worked with you and have been incredibly reasonable. I think when we first read this, I think our view was this was likely to lead to revocation. And the fact that the police didn't seek that in the first instance shows a very measured, reasonable and proportionate approach. But this is a final warning. Do not sell age-restricted products to anyone who appears to be under 25 without checking ID first. If there's evidence of this happening again, then it is highly likely that your licence will be revoked and that you will be prosecuted. And that doesn't just apply to alcohol, that applies to other age-related products, including vapes, even though we're not the licensing authority for that. That would be trading standards. But you are on your last warning from all of these authorities. If refusing sales leads to antisocial behaviour, then you have heard from the police themselves that you need to record that and how to contact them. So you have a neighbourhood policing team and you have Solace, which is the Borough Council's antisocial behaviour team. They will work with the licensee to tackle youth antisocial behaviour in relation to age-restricted products. And if that isn't working, there are politicians, there are your councillors, and there are the Police and Crime Commissioner who you can contact if there are issues with that. But you must not sell age-restricted products to children. I hope that's clear. So that we will move to the final item, which is any other items that are urgent and require a decision, and there are none. And it's about 2 minutes to 6, the meeting is closed. The licensing officer will have a conversation with you after the meeting. Okay, thank you.
Before we go, just one question, Chair. The training every 6 months would be logged, would be the training from the DPS, but the level 1 would be a stage where the new employee would go through before his employment starts. Is that correct?
I think that's correct, yes.
Thank you.
We will make sure that that is agreed.
Yeah.
We've got two sets of conditions that we need to get merged to make sure what you've offered is covered and what the police have requested is covered, and that it's worded in a way that is lawful. And given that we only got the documents an hour and a half ago, that's a bit of a challenge, which is why we're going to delegate that. But it should be clear. You've got a month to sort everything out, but if it takes longer, the suspension will last longer. So it is in your client's best interest to complete all of the things that need to be done so that they can get back trading. So hopefully that's clear. And the licensing team are there to work with you. We are not anti-business. We will support businesses that want to trade in Cheltenham, but you have to do so lawfully. Okay?
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.